Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is Behind the Bench with Jackie Sherrill, and in the middle of your screen is the former coach, and along the right side of the screen, you'll recognize Bill Maas, not only one of the greats from Pitt Panther history and the folklore behind him. We're going to learn a little bit more about his days in college, obviously his NFL career, and then his post-career involved with broadcasting. That certainly will be a top priority for us to take care of today. But before we do, I want to mention the Nine Golf. Spell it out, the N-I-N-E Golf. If you'd like to know more about your club speed, the ball angles, launch angles, spin rates, the distances that you have, and be able to video yourself and see what it is that you're doing and make corrections while you're in the studio, the TrackMan 4 system, the Golf VX system, these are all going to help your game. Virtual golf is taking off like nobody's business. And if you want to learn more about how to do so in the comfort of a nice air-conditioned studio, visit the9golf.com. They have their inaugural fall tournament that will be on September 6th. Great prizes, including a Wicked Weed golf bag, a trip to the Wicked Weed Brewery up in North Carolina, and also a Callaway Elite driver. We'll talk to Bill Maas in just a little bit to see if an elite driver will help his game. I'm not so sure it will, but we're going to try. We'll do everything we can. 3 sleeves of golfs, and you can book a bay, the lessons, the club fittings, all of that are available at the9golf.com. And also, we want to mention the Lee Haney games. Yes, Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Colemans and the Lee Haneys of the world are still involved with sports and athletics. 8-time Mr. Olympia champion Lee Haney is the host of the Lee Haney Games at the Gas South District in Duluth, Georgia. It'll be Saturday, November 1st. They'll have a bodybuilding qualifier for the Mr. Olympia. So this competition that they have here will have the winner go on to the Mr. Olympia qualifiers and see whether or not this is going to be Mr. or Mrs. Olympia. They also have calisthenics. They've got a Herculean deadlift. I know Bill knows about 10 guys that could probably still win that. A dance contest, fit kid contest, cornhole, and everything else that you could imagine. The money that's raised goes to the Haney Harvest House to help underprivileged children. Please be a part of the golf action that they have at the Country Club of Gwinnett in South Gwinnett County, Snellville, Georgia. We appreciate you doing that. Well, Jackie, every now and then we get a guest that not only is someone who played for you, but he went on and had even better days in spite of what you tried to teach him when you were in college. And Bill Maas happens to be that guy today. Thank you for getting him with us. And first and foremost, what was it like for you, Jackie, when you first got a chance to meet this guy out of high school? He was already 6'5". He weighed about, 240, 250 coming out of high school?
No.
Who wouldn't want it?
No. Bill Maas weighed 215 pounds. Our first meeting was at his parents' house, and we go in and have a great visit. He came from a school that was not real big. Matter of fact, the whole town only had probably 1,000, 1,100 people. But his high school, they won one game his senior year. Bill played tight end, played defense. But Joe Moore kept looking at him and he said, "Coach, I found a kid that's going to be a great player." And so we go visit, and we walk out of the door after our visit with he and his parents. And Bill and Joe said, "He's a 300-pounder." And I looked, and I said, "No way. He's going to be, he only weighs 215. He ain't going to be 300. Sure enough, he got to 300 real quick.
Bill, is it true you have thick bones, right? You're a big boned guy. Or did you just get fat?
Yeah, big bones. That's what I call it. We got into the Pitt program and the Iron City, man. I mean, it just kind of kicked in and took over. We had a great strength coach there who's still at it right now in the NFL, Buddy Morris. And Buddy, you get with Buddy and you're in that weight room and you kind of just becomes a personal thing.
Buddy, a lot of the pro players from the Steelers in the off season would come and work out with Buddy. Buddy is one of the better strength coaches he was in college, but the NFL with the Cardinals.
That has to be a great recruiting tool. And Jackie, I think you take advantage of that as best you can. You bring in some kids and And Bill, for you, was it Mean Joe Green or LC Greenwood? Who was in there one day where you're going, I can't believe what I'm seeing. That guy has more Super Bowl rings than I have years of playing football.
Yeah, well, Coach was pretty strategic on his when he brought in his recruits that he wanted to land. It was Super Bowl weekend in Pittsburgh when myself, Chris Dolman, uh, we had a slew of guys in. I think Chris Carter was in there as well. Came in that weekend that the Steelers were playing in the Super Bowl, and the town was just painted black and gold, and it was a special feeling. You could tell right away that I could anyhow that this is someplace I want to play.
Well, you're from, is it Marple? Am I saying that correctly? Marple, Newton High School.
Newtown. Marple, Newtown. Yep.
Okay. And this is just outside of Philadelphia, so you're a Philly guy. Hey, did you grow up as an Eagle fan and Flyers and Sixers?
Yeah.
Was that the
big
thing to do?
That was big. One of my close friends' dad worked for the Flyers. And they were winning the Stanley Cup, and yeah, that was big. And in 1980, we were there, and the Eagles that year, my freshman year, got to the Super Bowl against the Raiders. So yeah, it was a big deal. But when I got to Pittsburgh, when you have guys like John Kolb and LC Greenwood and Mike Webster coming in your locker room and training in our weight room with Buddy Morris, I mean, that's an everlasting impression on somebody.
Oh, absolutely. I can imagine that, the effect on that. But when did football become something for you that you go, I'm not only good at this, but I really like it. I enjoy it. Yeah, we had a bad experience in terms of we didn't win a whole heck of a lot of games. But when did you have the idea, Bill, that you knew that whatever it is, you started to show that you had it?
I think you started getting all back then. It was you got all these letters sent to you from all these head coaches, right, from around the country, and there was a lot of interest. And they set up recruiting trips, and they'd follow up with phone calls. They get your phone number from the school, and they call or get your address and come see you. I just put together a plan that, how far away was I going to go? And I had about a 5-hour drive for my family was about the limit of it. And so what could that be? And Temple and Rutgers weren't really all that great at that time. Syracuse was kind of up and coming, and of course there was Pittsburgh. And so I kind of kept it in a time frame for where my family could actually still come and see me play. Was what I wanted to do. And when I got to Pittsburgh with Jackie and the coaching staff and meeting all the guys up there, there wasn't a close second choice.
What was it that impressed you the most? I mean, not just the fact that it wasn't that far. Was Penn State a consideration?
Well, I didn't. My whole family, my cousins and nephews and uncles, and they wore Penn State shirts all the time, and I just wasn't a big fan of it. And so when I had the opportunity to go to Pittsburgh, which was really special, there was just something about it. It was I can't put into words what it was, but there must have been something that when you can get that kind of group of players together, there's a feeling about it. So like there is something special here, and you knew it. And I think a lot of that had to do with coach's ability to identify those kind of players and those kind of people and pull those kind of guys together that all have the same kind of makeup and mentality. And I think that's what the feeling was.
Interesting. And Jackie, you're obviously from a psychological perspective. You take a little bit of that recruiting thing that all coaches try to do, get the best players, but you've got a couple of other, you got Johnny Majors in the back of your head. You got Bear Bryant in the back of your head, but you've also got Jackie Sherrill. in the front of your head. There's a separation between what they did and what you wanted. Now, in many cases, they all come together, and I think that's where the magic of it is. But what was it that you see not only in Chris Dolman or Bill Fralick or Jimbo Covert, some of these big guys, to get them to not only want to come there, but to play at the highest level? That's not easy to do, Jackie. So I give you credit for being able to kind of weave that meshing together in such a point that they're all on the same page and we like each other enough to where we're going to make this happen.
Well, naturally, they had the ability, or you wouldn't recruit them. But then projecting where they're going to play, and that came from Coach Bryant, because Coach Bryant, if you were a player, Coach Bryant found you a place to play. And it's just like quite a few players on our team and teammates of Bill, when we were at Pitt, you find players a place to play. Just like we recruited Bill as the tight end, he ended up one of the best nose guards that's ever played at Pitt. Same thing at Kansas City. But you're able to take players and put them in position, in recruiting linebackers, recruiting other positions. Jimbo Covert, for example, defensive lineman to offense, that end up having great career in first round draft choices. So it's important. But the one thing that separated all the players from me was I never recruited a player without seeing him in the presence of his mother. And if he respected his mother, which Bill was one of, then I knew that whatever I did to him, meaning physically in workouts or whatever, he was going to be okay. Because usually if a kid respects his mother, then he's going to respect a coach. And that was my biggest determination of whether to take a kid or not. And there were a lot of kids that I did not take that were good players, but they were not respectful to the mother.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of diamonds in the rough slipped through the cracks because of that one engagement that you were able to see during what would be on many occasions a spaghetti dinner. Is that pretty much, the kind of the maybe steaks? With Bill, it was probably filet mignon. You know how it goes, nothing but the best for Coach Sherrill.
Well, if you were invited to have dinner, or if you were invited to have a special piece of pie or cake, then you knew that you probably got in very good terms with the mother.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, was that kind of the case with you? Did you notice when he came to your house that Jackie wanted to visit with Mom and spend some time with her and Dad, of course? Were they both there for your visit?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My mom was all about Jackie Sherrill. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. She was
Did he
smitten,
say
I
this
think.
is the greatest spaghetti dinner I've ever had in my life? Mrs. Maas, this is amazing. I cannot imagine it being any better.
Well, I will say that again,
yeah.
when we left the house, when Joe Moore said he'll be a 300-pounder, I said, Joe, there ain't no way. But sure enough, very quickly, and we put him in the right position. But as he said, he came in with some pretty good players, but he played with 4 first-round draft choices. Ricky was a 3rd round, I guess, but he ended up in the Hall of Fame. So there were 4 players that were good enough to be in not only All-Americans, but in the Hall of Fame at one time on that defensive line.
Absolutely sick, the amount of talent there, Bill. Unbelievable. So many questions to ask, but I was always told by my coaches and even my best friends, you're not only slow, but you're really weak. Tell me about tight end and the experience. Could you make that over the shoulder catch where your fingertips always, connected properly? Was that something that you really wanted to do, or was the transition over to defense? Was that something that you said, you know what, I'm going to get a chance to play, I'm going to learn to love the position, and you eventually do both?
I could catch the ball and I could run. And
Yeah.
but my mentality was more along the lines of I'd rather get after somebody. And so that ability, kind of put me over on the defensive side. I liked tackling. I liked rushing the passer. I liked trying to get the ball stripped. I mean, those things, that was just innate. And it was when I was in high school too, when I played both ways. I mean, there's something more aggressive about the defensive side of the ball that fit me well. And um, it was home. So, like Coach said, they he found a place and they put me in the right place.
Well, you mentioned to me when I asked if you'd be interested in being on the show, something about Chris Dolman. Talk a little bit before we end with high school. Is it the 33 game? Tell me about the All-Star game for the high schoolers that you get invited to, and how you developed a relationship, of a long-lasting one with Chris Dolman.
So the Pennsylvania Big 33 game is a historic game. They got a documentary on ESPN, and you're selected to play in this game. And it used to be Pennsylvania, Ohio, and then it just changed to Pennsylvania, the east side versus the west side of the state. And uh, I was on the east side of the state on the east team, and Chris Dolman, who was from York, Pennsylvania, um, he was on the east side of the team as well. And so you go and you stay at people's houses, and you practice for a week, and you get to meet a bunch of players, and they're all going to different colleges on scholarship, and you talk to them, and you're going to see these guys, but you're going to play them at some point in time for the most part. And from day one, Chris and I just hit it off at practice. Um, he was outgoing and fun, and uh, always a big laugh. And I was like, man, why you should come to Pitt with me. I said, why are you going to Temple? I said, I grew up in Philly. I told him, I said, that Temple, it's not happening. They're not very good. And I think he said something along the lines of, my family got a Cadillac out of her. So I can't quite recall, but I said, man, you need to come to Pitt and play with me. We would have so much fun. And our relationship got so good over that week. I had called Joe Moore and I said, hey, Joe, you got to get Jackie. You got to get this kid Dolman. I mean, he's phenomenal. And I want him on our defense up in Pittsburgh. And I told Chris, I said, hey, I'm going to give Coach Moore and Coach Sherrill your phone number. And you need to talk to them. And they did. They had a conversation with him, and they talked him into going to Valley Forge Military Academy, getting his grade point up for a semester, and then coming on board with us. And that all panned out. And that was just over a bond of friendship of that we had for one another in that week of practice. And look at him. He's something else. I miss that dude.
Hey, Bill, I'm going to tell you right now, with all those gloves and sweatbands and forearm pads and elbow pads and the neck roll, I couldn't tell what a beast he was underneath. But talk a little bit about, this is a full-grown man, right? Was he like that when you met him in high school?
Yeah, he was, obviously a little bit leaner, thinner, and lankier. But he really grew into it, man. He's on
Yeah.
Buddy's program too, Buddy Morris, and the shoulders just filled out, and the arms got defined, and his strength. I mean, when he first got there, it was tough, and he had a battle all the time to when taking on blocks. But he grew into it, man, and
Yeah.
he still kept that thin waist, and he could rush the passer. He had great speed and great hand
Oh,
and
his hands are
coordination. And
amazing. Yep.
yeah, the guy was phenomenal. And he was really smart football player too. Like he figured out and he learned how to use different devices, different leverages with his arms, with his legs on rushing the passer. He wasn't a one-trick pony. I mean,
No.
he turned into an every down player for sure.
Well, he got a lot of that, Bill, from playing basketball also. Yeah, he could play basketball.
Yeah.
Hey, Jackie, does it make your job easier when the players do the recruiting for you and you don't even have to do it? They just go around telling each other, hey, let's go to Pitt. I'll talk to coach and we'll see if we can't make it. Yeah, you got grades. All right, you have to drop out for a semester and just become a student. But then we're going to get you right in. That must have made it real easy for you.
Well, most coaches don't understand how important their present players are in recruiting. Now, they'll either get you a player or they're going to tell that player, don't come. And I was fortunate because all the players, the older players certainly recruited the younger players, going all the way back to Tony Dorsett. You know, he was recruited by the guys that were on the team, but Tony recruited some younger. And Tony recruited Hugh Green. Tony recruited Ricky Jackson. So, all of those guys, they would take care of the recruits, and you would get players because they would tell them, come here.
That's an interesting scenario. And Bill, I'm going to ask you, was there a time when you first get there that you feel like an outsider, or was there an event that you go, wait a second, I'm in and we're all family? Someone did something to let you know that it doesn't matter. We're all Pitt Panthers and we're here together. Was there an event that you can think of that helped introduce you to that type of a philosophy?
Yeah. So going there, I came up and we toured the facilities, and I got to meet Dan Marino, and that was his freshman year there, and just talking with the guys, and they were encouraging. And Dan's like, "You need to come here. You need to be here." And they just got back from the Fiesta Bowl, I believe, and you're talking to these guys, and you can sense something and feel something, and when they're telling you they want you to be part of something is when you feel that you want to be wanted. And at that age, I mean, well, I guess most ages, everybody wants to feel wanted, right? And when they're telling you like I want you here, you feel like they want you there, and I'm going to come there and I'm going to be part of this. And when I got there on campus, that's what it was. I felt, you felt it right away. We felt like, I'm a part of this. I'm a part of this Pitt Panther football team. And it's something special.
The Northeast kids have always been able to coach there. The kids in the Northeast are going to have the size. They're going to have the toughness because most of them are from blue-collar families. And they are. When I retired, I had invited players from Pitt, Mississippi State, A&M, and my wife pointed at the Pitt guys, and she said, those are men. Now, this is later in life, but of all the teams I recruited or coached, the Pitt guys were men. They were not boys. They were men when they came on campus. And they were able to endure that environment because they grew up in tough settings, in tough environments, and Pitt was no big deal being a city school back then.
Interesting you mentioned that, Jackie, because West Virginia, Penn State, Pitt, I'm going to throw Syracuse in there. I don't add BC. I don't talk about Temple, as Bill mentioned a little bit earlier. There are very few local colleges, and I think the willingness for some of these, big, thick-necked, thick-calf guys with smaller waists that want to play get a chance to go somewhere else and will gladly do so, because I think the pro game in any sport in the Northeast trumps the college game.
It does.
Everyone's a Yankee fan. They're not rooting for, the college baseball team. They're the hockey teams, the basketball, even in the football. Is there any truth to that? Have you noticed that in terms of, your experience? Jackie, you first, and then Bill, absolutely. I want your comments on that as well.
Well, you can look at, Birmingham, Alabama, which is next to Tuscaloosa. There's no pro teams in Alabama. You take Texas, you have the Cowboys and the Oilers, but Texas is so big. You take LSU, what pro team other than the Saints? So you have the ability in towns. Now, you have exceptions in Southern Cal or UCLA. You have exception in Washington, but, Pitt's an exception because the background of Pitt, meaning Pittsburgh, is a blue-collar steel mill working town. It's not a environment where you have the IT or you have the tech sector. They grew up in a very tough environment, meaning the blue-collar class people that they're, football was important to them. Sports was important, but watching their kids play sports was very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Friday night, maybe not so much Saturday, and then, of course, Sunday in the Northeast. Bill, your perception now as compared to what it would have been as a 17 and an 18-year-old in terms of the high school awareness and the college versus the pro analogy that I gave a few moments ago.
Yeah, so for me, you're 100% right. I mean, everything was based around growing up in Philadelphia was, a major sports scene, right? The Sixers, the Flyers, the Eagles, the Phillies. That's where I grew up. Wasn't much attention on news at night. You didn't see a rundown on Temple or Rutgers, or you saw a lot of basketball. You saw the Big Five, right? And
Yeah.
you saw that on a regular basis, but you didn't have any college coverage, and you darn sure didn't have any high school football scores on the news. That wasn't happening in Philadelphia. When I went to Pittsburgh, it was a different culture. Friday night football was a big deal. It was on television. It was on the news. They were reporting it. The WPIL out there was that's big, and it's talked about and it's written about in the newspapers. It's addressed. I mean, people. It's a sanctuary, and we played our football games at Marple on Friday nights, but I don't think the feeling was as close to the feeling that it was what I saw on the western side of the state. And I think a lot of that has to do with what Coach talked about. I mean, it was a steel town. When I first got there on a recruiting trip in 1980, we come off the turnpike, we get off the exit 6 there, and you're in Pittsburgh, and it's a cloud of black smoke. I mean, the city was covered in it in 1980.
Yeah.
That transformed rather quickly in the next 5 or 6 years, but to a white collar town with Pittsburgh plate and glass and transformation of downtown. But those steel mills were pumping out smoke then at that time, right? And I think there was just a toughness about it, and people and people adhered to it. They took to it. They wanted to become a Pittsburgher.
That's a very interesting scenario, and I've looked at it this way. I got to Atlanta in 1991, and that was when the Braves went from worst to first. And they played Pittsburgh in the playoffs, and there was a game, and Dion was a part of that. So everyone, for me personally, I'm a Falcon, and then I'm also watching Dion at practice at 1 o'clock, and at 3:30, there's a helicopter that picks him up and takes him downtown for the 7 o'clock game in the playoffs. It's just a crazy time. But when they went back to Pittsburgh, there were a couple of shots of the stadium, and the lower bowl was full, but up in the top, there were empty seats. And if it told me anything, it said, if you're going to divide your money, if you're going to split Pittsburgh money, it's going to go to the Steelers and not to the Pirates. I think the Panthers especially Jackie, with you being there in 1980, and we'll address this in just a second, but they became a part of that split where, you know what, either way, I can go Saturday or Sunday. If I can't do both and I don't have a ticket to see the Steelers on Sunday, I'm sure going to go watch the Panthers on Saturday.
Yeah, we would sell out. What people today doesn't realize, but that stadium that we played in was built back in the 20s, and it was the same size. So football in Pittsburgh was very, very popular all the way back when we talked about Fordham and we talked about, football at that time. Pittsburgh was in that level, and they dipped. And I will say this, the probably the team, but one player in particular, by the name of Tony Dorsett, brought Pitt back. And Bill was with the group that sustained it. From 1971 to Bill's senior year, 1983, Pitt was in the top 5 every year.
Yeah.
And for that 11-year period, you had Pitt was it and around the country. But when Bill left, then the program went down because I don't think that they emphasized. I don't think that because basketball was coming in to the Big East, as Bill mentioned, and so the direction of the administration went to basketball instead of staying with football. And so Pitt at that time in 1983, when Bill's senior class left, they went completely downhill, and they have never been able to come back and reach that success simply because they de-emphasized football and spent the time, energy, and effort in basketball because of the Big East at that time was basketball. It wasn't football.
Well, Bill, what I'm hearing Coach say is it's your
Yeah.
fault. Everything from Pitt fell off the wayside because of you. I'm sorry to hear that. That's a darn shame. But the talent level alone.
Well, I didn't tear down the stadium. I can tell you that much.
I'll put it this way: they didn't recruit Bill Maas's or Chris Dolman's or the Danny Marino's that was there at that time.
And that, again, another interesting point. Where did those players, and Dan's from Pittsburgh, you're from Philadelphia. You didn't have to go more than 100 miles to find enough guys to have a championship level lineup. Is that a fair assessment, Jackie?
Yes. But
maybe 200 to go to the other side of the state to go get Bill. But
we were lucky. We supplemented some players from the South and the West, but the majority of them came from right there local. I've always said, if you look at the teams that win, now they're more international recruiting. But you look at Ohio State, you look at Michigan, you look at Penn State, you look at Alabama, Florida, Miami, Texas, those same thing, UCLA, Southern Cal. Yeah. They recruit mostly from that locale.
Yep. And if they can't, you got major problems. Major problems. You got to get the local kids to want to stay. You're not going to get every one of them, but you got to get at least a few of the top tier, the 5 and the 4 stars. Yeah. Well, Bill, let's look at 1980 if you don't mind. That's your freshman year. I got a team picture here. We're not going to be able to make out anybody. All these coaches. I've never seen so many coaches as are in the lineup. Now, maybe there's an equipment manager or 2 in there. But your first game that year is against Boston College. It's a home game. You end up winning it. What was that like for you to walk through the stadium? You go through the tunnel. You got the early outs. You come back in. Then you got the fight song. And you got about 45,000 people going crazy. What was that experience like for you to break you in? It was certainly not the same in high school, was it?
No, no, not close. Um, yeah, it was, you know, to wear the blue and gold of Pitt and that script on the side of the helmet and your name on the back of the jersey. Um, yeah, all that's just putting that uniform on. Um, I think Coach, I think you even talked about this one time too, is that, the guys want a good looking uniform, and Coach changed the colors a little bit and tweaked it, and we had some beautiful uniforms. Guys took pride in wearing that. So yeah, going out there and all the color and pageantry of a fall football game, and um, just to watch everything come together with the guys you just broke training camp with, and pound somebody, and know that you have a special team, a special quarterback, unbelievable offensive line. Every one of them got drafted.
Yeah.
It's to have that, and then defense and Hugh Green and the crowd yelling Hugh as loud as they can, and all those things. It was, yeah, it's I can't tell you. I mean, it's like going to an amusement park when you're a little kid. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what you wanted to be a part of.
What was it like with Hugh? What was his asset? Right around the same time, you got Lawrence Taylor, who wasn't getting the same amount of press. And Hugh was one of those guys, if you ask me, he's a Heisman candidate on the defensive side of the ball. Unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. But was it just the combination of strength and speed, the want to, right, the desire, as well as the savviness of being in the right place and guessing correctly on certain occasions? What was it about Hugh that made him special in your eyes, Bill?
Guy was cat. I mean, he was all over the place. Um, I think when you're that good and you get drafted that high, sometimes you're going to a bad team. It's an uphill battle, and then you're changing coaching staffs and all the time, year in and year out, and they don't necessarily use you in the right way. I mean, as a hybrid, Hugh Green's talents at his prime would be unbelievable in today's NFL game, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's got that kind of tweener size between an edge rusher and a guy that can drop and cover. I mean, you could do anything with him. But to watch him play, I remember. I mean, he was so fast at what he did, the way he could close on the back and tackle, the way he could drop, the way he could rush the passers. I mean, is his ability to do things. When you're seeing that for the first time, up front, up close and in person, that's players know what other players have, right? Because you see it and you admire those traits. Now you have to work in finding your own things and honing those things to play within your limits, but when you're seeing something special. And I saw a bunch of special things in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you did. And Hugh was
Well,
just one part of the many. Go ahead, Jackie.
well, we've talked about Pitt enough. I want you to talk about Bill's pro career because it he had an unreal pro career. He was a man when he stepped on the field in pro ball. And as you know, back then there was a lot of guys that took 3 or 4 years to be able to play at the level Bill played the very first year.
Okay. I'm with you, Jackie. But before we do, if you don't mind, I got one picture up here, Bill. I'm going to show. This is some guy that, man, would you want to be that referee right now, looking at that face, staring right at you? Now, this is on the evening news. I imagine this is a local Pittsburgh guy getting to talk about the head coach there
Yeah.
of the Panthers. But, Bill, you made mention to me something when I visited with you about a week ago that was very interesting. And you gave some credit to Jackie for toughening you up. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I saw that face a few times.
And it wasn't directed at a referee. It was more pointed at
No, it was right at me.
your helmet.
Yeah. There was every day you'd have to walk up, they call it Cardiac Hill, to get to the stadium to go to practice. And it was a hike, but I drug myself up there every day knowing that as soon as we got done flex and stretch, Jackie was going to call me in the middle every day my freshman year. I'm not kidding. I thought he wanted my scholarship. I was like, what am I doing? And I now know that he saw something in me that he could bring out. And it finally came out. It came out. And but yeah, and those are the things that only coaches can see in you. You don't know, but he saw that I would be probably content doing just about whatever, and he was going to force me, break me to do it the right way, his way. And when you learn that, and you take that with you, and you play every single down that way, that was the message. That was the learning process, and not just sometimes, all the time.
Well, Jackie has said on numerous occasions, he said, I'm not your friend, I'm your coach. But there's a difference, and I want to say this. I said this before, and Jackie, thank you again for having Bill on. And a couple of weeks ago, we had Sonny Lubick on, and Sonny was my offensive coordinator at Colorado State University. And I've always put it this way. If I know a coach cares about me, if he loves me, so to speak, if he wants me to succeed, I don't like it, but I give him the right to chew me out in a different manner because I know that he wants to get more out of me than I know how to get out of myself. That isn't easy for a player to do. They don't want to get yelled at. They don't want to get embarrassed in front of their teammates and go through a film session and go, holy cow, why am I even here? Like you said, it's like he wants to take my scholarship. Everything I do is wrong. But there's a humility that's involved with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but yeah, I think that there is one that when a player learns that, he can overcome just about anything because he realizes he's not against me. He just doesn't like the way I'm doing it right now. And he sees me getting better before I even know that I know how to do that. Is there anything of that kind of makes sense the way I put that?
Yeah, but when you're 18 years old, you don't know that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to, later on is when you put the pieces together. And like I told you, I mean, what coach stayed a part of my life all the way through everything. Back before there were cell phones, we'd get a telegram before every opening day game. Him wishing us the best, and he knew, giving us that look and what we got from that there would be a bond there for forever, and it means the world to me and a lot all the other guys as well that I talked to about Jackie.
Yeah. Well, and eventually you get to play in a game like this, against the University of Georgia for a national championship. It all seems to kind of fit together and make sense. And, you're standing at the line of scrimmage like Dan is right here. And we got this. We got this. This is no problem. Right. I mean, there's some things about that really, when you see the bigger picture, it makes a lot more sense. And you learn to live with it in a different manner. It's okay to win six games and lose 5. Most teams do that, or maybe they go 5 and 6. But you were talking about, if we lose 1, it's a disappointing year. Much different expectations there at Pitt.
Back then it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I had all kinds of great stuff that I was going to talk about.
I remember that game.
Go
we
ahead,
held
please.
Herschel Walker to his lowest rushing.
Yeah.
That Georgia game, I mean, it was a great ending. Everyone knows that, but we held Herschel Walker to his lowest rushing game in his collegiate history.
How about
52
that?
yards.
What was it about that game in particular? Was everybody just clicking and you felt fast on that turf, or you're just ready in a different way? And you look at the guys on the other side. Hey, these are some of the best offensive linemen in the country, and we're beating them. We're getting across their face.
Yeah, Harper, let me set this up.
Please.
We were number 1 in the nation for 7 weeks. We played Penn State at Pitt. We're going to kick their rear end. And it was the first time, and the players were not very happy with me because during the game, Penn State dropped 9 and only rushed 2, and we didn't run the football. We kept throwing it. and the players were not very happy. So that dumbass head coach lost the game. And if we had won that game, and certainly as we did beat Georgia, then we would have been the national champs with all we were with the New York Times, but UPI, AP, we would have been the national champions. So it was the head coach that lost that game. And I let the players correct it in winning against Georgia. The only thing I told our team is we have to keep Herschel going east and west. If we let him go north and south, we can't stop him.
Yeah. Bill, was there something about that extra week of preparation? Really, 2 weeks. You get a little time off, and you get Christmas, and then next you got to go to work. I mean, it's time to, make this January 1st is the big deal. Do you remember anything specifically about that? Do you go, you know what? Not only am I ready, but I'm looking around this room, and everybody seems to be this is meaningful. Some people take bowl games off. I've heard about it and I've seen it happen. I never got to go to one, but you're playing for a national championship. What was that experience like for you?
Well, a couple things. One, we worked our tail off down there when we got there. We went to Biloxi, Mississippi, Jackie's hometown, for a little bit, about 5 days before going down to New Orleans. But we practiced hard, and we're coming off that loss to Penn State. I mean, they were upset, not emotionally. I mean, we wanted to go take this out on somebody. And that was Georgia. That was Herschel Walker. And I don't ever remember on those teams ever feeling like we weren't going to win. And nobody's better than us. And nobody's tougher than us. We're going to beat them up. And that's what we did for the most part of the times. And when we did drop one here and there, we were shocked and humbled and mad at the same time. So, we were ready for Georgia.
Well, you certainly were ready for just about everybody else. In an independent schedule, you're going against West Virginia every year. Maryland, I believe, every year. Syracuse, Louisville, those are some of those key rivalry games that you had from a regional perspective, and along with Penn State. I showed a picture just a moment ago. I'll have another one in just a second, but talk a little bit about your understanding of that Penn State rivalry and being a part of that. That obviously for me, that is you got to beat the Nittany Lions. That the season is somewhat dependent upon that.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted them. We wanted everything they had. And we wanted to beat them. And when we did, it was great. And then, they went to the Big Ten and changed conferences, and they don't want to have anything to do with University of Pittsburgh. And they kind of had that attitude about it all along. So we were like the stepchild, and we wanted to be recognized. And anytime we got a chance to beat them, it was a joy.
And you got plenty of chances too. Jackie, your perspective in a one-horse town where the Steelers are there, I would imagine that even the Steelers have to take a back seat whenever the Nittany Lion game is going to be coming on at the end of the year, the last game, usually in November, right around right around Thanksgiving time. What was that like for you?
Certainly that game was as big as, Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M, UCLA, Southern Cal, Notre Dame. It was the game, and they moved it to a Thursday or Friday, usually a Friday, as the only game on TV, and it deserved that billing. And with the networks, it showed up because it produced that many viewers to watch that one game.
Jackie, I got a picture up here that I found. This is basically two boxers that are accidentally wearing football uniforms that are punching each other in the face right on this particular moment. What I love about it is that it doesn't matter. This is more of a rivalry between a guy that I may know. I played against him in high school. The in-state rivalry, the region and obviously the national ramifications of something like this. This was more than just any other game. This meant something, right? Bill, do you remember anything about going up there to Penn State and seeing it's a bigger stadium right now? It's 108,000 people there. It's amazing how big that stadium is. But anything impress you about what they have there in what's it? College, not College Station. State Park. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please forgive me. Go ahead.
Happy Valley.
Happy Valley. Goodness gracious.
That's what,
Beaver
that's
Stadium.
what they call it. Happy Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's what you knew. You knew that all these guys you're playing against are first rounders. That's what you knew. Kurt Warner was a running back. That's Sean Farrell right there, a 3-time All-American first rounder. Ron Heller was a tackle.
Yeah.
Mike Munchak was the guard. Todd Blackledge. I mean, yeah, that's what you knew. You were the best guys against the best guys, and that's what you want to compete against. Well,
your career ends. We'll go very quickly through it because we will adhere to Jackie's. We get to the pros. And number 5 overall, what was that like for you? That time where you have your last bowl game, and then you got to get ready for the combine. Jackie, did you know whether or not Bill did Bill start showing up in a luxury sports car right away? The day after
we didn't have the NIL back then, but I can tell you, if we had the NIL back then, we still could compete with Ohio State, Pittsburgh. I mean, Texas A&M. We still could have the best players.
Bill, the combine, what was that process like for you? You see all these other guys that are in the same position as you are, height, weight, 40 time, bench press. They spread your fingers out to see how big your hand is. They measure everything about you. Can you touch your toes when you stretch out your hamstring? All the parameters that are a part of this. What was the process like for you specifically? And did you know that you would go 5 overall? I mean, did you have an agent representing you that said, listen, you might be 4. Are you disappointed at 5? Or you go, no, this is perfect for me? Talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So the combine is we had so many guys go through it over the years that were ahead of me. I knew what it entailed because they come back and they tell you about it, and so you knew what to expect, and we knew how to prepare for it. We trained for the combines. We did combine specific drills. So we got with Buddy Morris and spent about a month with him getting ready for the combine. So you got down there and I guess the thing that got me was how the psychological part of it. All these coaches with their staff wanted to sit down in a meeting room with you and talk with you. They're trying to figure you out. They want to know everything there is to know about you. And I think that was the part that kind of shocked me a little bit. I prepared for the physical side of it. It was the interrogation part that I thought was kind of different or unique. So and then Philadelphia had the 4th pick that year, and they told me they were taking me, and I was thinking, "Oh, great, I'll be back home." And San Diego had the 6th pick, and at the 5th, and I'm like, I'm either going to be in Philly or at the beach. This isn't a bad deal. And Philly took the receiver, I think Kenny Jackson, and then I got a call from Kansas City, and they were taking me. So I did have an agent. We knew from all the conversations we've had with teams and all the calls we had that we'd go in the top 10 somewhere. Just didn't know where, and that's how it played out that day. So it was great. I knew if I was going to go high, I said before, you're going to a team that has issues. the only thing you can do is just try to be a key figure in helping turn that team around. And that's the mentality I went into it with, and that's actually what I got out of it too. So it was, yeah, it all turned out well.
Well, if I'm a plug and play type guy, putting you in on that Chiefs defense, especially in those years, you have Art Still, you got Mike Bell, what was Radisich? Scott Radisich. You got one of the best secondaries next to maybe the
Yeah.
49ers in the league. Everybody was young. And my understanding is that, you were a guy that could just make a difference on day one. Is that basically what you were told by John Makovic and the staff there, that, hey, this is your position, let's go?
So, we played an odd front at Pitt, and I played right end, which, you're still squeezing, you're still crossing the face of the tackle, or you got outside contained. You're playing kind of, you're not just a guy shooting upfield. But I was a right end, and when they drafted me and told me they were going to make me a nose tackle, I was like, oh God. I just heard all these different horror stories about, playing at nose. And so I didn't think I would last that long there. I never played down inside there over center before. I never lined up there in college. So when they told me that's where I was going to be, I was like, wasn't excited about it. But I made the most of it. So when I get out there, they plugged me in as a starter day one, and I had to figure out how to play in there. Nose tackle back then was kind of shorter, squattier type bodies, wider type bodies. I'm 6'5", 265, and I'm playing nose. Yeah, so I had to figure out a lot on the run when they stuck me in there.
And who was responsible for helping you catch up in terms of your learning? Was that a coach? Was that one of the other players? Was it a combination of that? And then did you spend more time watching film to see what other guys in the leagues were doing? Because your size, and for me, you just mentioned, I'm a nose. Your speed to be able to get outside of the guard center box, to be able to stretch a play out that has to go to the tackle or even outside of that. That to me was one of your assets. Your ability to stay afloat, keep your feet moving, and get from one side of the field to the other. I think we lost Bill. We're going to get him back in just a second. Jackie, you can address that a little bit. Some of the talent that Bill had that was just natural, and you've been seeing for 4 years, right? Yeah, of course he's going to make it in the NFL. I saw it all the time.
Well, what you did see is awful lot of our players in Pittsburgh area, Philadelphia, New York, they all were wrestlers growing up. And so they were able to use the lower gravity, meaning they were able to move shorter to the ground instead of being up top. And when you look at even today's players, the ones that can play at a lower center of gravity as defensive linemen and as edge rushers that can be able to turn the corner and go under the tackles. Those are the ones, and Bill had that. Bill was able, not only his balance, but his athletic ability to be able to get under and use the leverage against the offensive players.
Bill, before we lost you, I was trying to address a simple question. There's a lot to learn when moving from one position to another, even if it's just sliding down instead of lining up over a tackle or outside the guard's eye to being on one side or the other of the center. So what were some of the resources that you used to get you caught up to where you go, look, I got to be ready on week one, but I also need to know how to play this position, and I'm going to try to revolutionize it. I'm going to keep my feet and be able to stretch plays out to the left and right. Who do you address all of the learning, the process, and the necessary things to get you prepped for the beginning of your career?
Well, there's a lot of trash down inside there.
Yeah.
So I correlated it like skiing moguls. Okay.
Okay.
I just had to learn how to work my way through that was actually the deal. And so Walt Corey, who at that time was my first defensive line coach.
Yep.
And Walt went on to be a great defensive coordinator in the league for a lot of years. But he was really, guy says, hey, I'm going to help you down here. He said, don't worry about just being over the center. I'm going to move you around. And he did. And he had me jumping from side to side, like in a mug kind of defensive on an angle on the center. He'd had me shooting gaps. He utilized my quickness and speed in there. So I wasn't sitting there over the center waiting to get attacked. He actually used me as the attacker. If that makes sense.
It reminds me a little bit of what Tom Landry did for Randy White. You flex him off and allow his speed, his quickness, and everything that he does well to allow him to do it and to give him the freedom with that extra, I'm going to call it 18 inches, right? That 1.5 feet off the ball allowed him to read. And even though you're giving up 18 inches, he more than made up for it with his strength and his power and his ability to find where the ball was going to be and where it was going to be run. Was there any of that was applicable to you?
Yeah. So he did flex him off and gave him room to kind of scrape like a linebacker, kind of like what they did with Cleveland with Bob Golick. They backed him off and he played nose because he was a linebacker at Notre Dame. They got me right up in the neck of the center
Okay.
on either side and had me either blow up that neck right through the A-gap or jump the other side. So they used my quickness and athletic ability. So I wasn't sitting there just as a target waiting to get drilled by a center and a guard. They used me to be disruptive and to create kind of havoc for the linebackers behind me to flow to where they need to go.
Yep. That's not an easy thing to do. You occupy a center and even a part of a guard and allow a linebacker to scrape free. You're talking about no gain right there. Jackie, it takes a special kind of coach to have the ability to recognize what players can do and what they're best at that may not fit the natural flow of the defense, but you're willing to adjust it and mold it into something different to bring out the best in some of these players. Like, for example, when we talked about Hugh Green a little bit earlier, Hugh's speed allowed you to do some things and take some chances, I would imagine, a little bit differently than you normally would with a different player.
Well, also talking about Bill had the strength, but he also had the quickness and he could use his hands. And if you see every picture off of playing in pro ball or college, Bill was able to use his hands to get off of blocks, but he used his speed to be able to move left to right or to close on the quarterback.
Yeah.
So, and you see this picture right here, his first move is with his hands. He was able to get his hands on that center and move him right or left or completely, still make the center.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a rookie of the year, and I want to discuss that, obviously. But, Jackie, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I was drafted by the Chiefs in Bill's second year, 1985.
Well, then you got to see him.
Well, how about this? The Chiefs said, you're so slow and weak that we're going to draft a tight end and a center ahead of you, but we want you to play center for us because we know you can long snap. So I had to go up against Bill in practice, and I'll have to put it this way very politely. It was an embarrassing and humbling time for me. His hands, and that's what I wanted to talk to him about. Earlier he mentioned the technique and thing. There were times where I would snap and I'd put my hands up, and Bill's hands were in the same position, and our hands would separate. We were both fighting for that same spot. Mike Bell, a few occasions, had the same instance occur with him. So I wanted him to discuss a little bit more about the technique, but you're absolutely right. You know, it's not just getting where you need to be. It's doing so with force, with power, with aggressiveness. And when you use your hands correctly, Chris Dolman was amazing with his hands. He would swipe and he'd get guys to miss him because he was quicker than they were. The precision of that is absolutely amazing. And really, when you learn how to do that, you become a pro's pro.
Yeah, well, like I said, the picture you have of right now, if you say who's going to win that battle, you're going to say the one on the left, because his leverage with his, not only his body but his hands, certainly is going to jack up the center.
Yep.
So, you know, Bill had that ability to be able to bend his body and to use his hands. And same thing with Chris. You look at all the great pass rushers today, they're able to bend their body, get under the tackle, go around, but they can maneuver at a lower center of gravity than the people they're going to play against. And Bill had that ability.
Yeah. Bill, we lost you for a couple seconds. Sorry about that, but we were talking about. I
could hear you guys.
Okay.
I could hear you guys the whole.
Well, Stink, then I don't have to repeat myself.
I could hear you.
Fill us in a little bit about your perspective while we were discussing it, you know, talking to the importance of your technique and how to learn to use your hands in a way where each play is uniquely different, but it's critical for you to be able to get to where you need to be.
So actually, this started at Pitt. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they would really change the run blocking techniques to use your hands. And Joe Moore was one of the innovative coaches that taught his offensive line to lead with their hands. It wasn't coming out and blocking. It was lead with your hands. And we had this thing we worked on at Pitt with the offensive and defensive linemen. It was simply this: he who gets his hands inside first wins. And you become, it's your steering wheel. And I'd always grab their hands or shoot right for the V of their neck. And I remember my first game, it was at Three River Stadium against Mike Webster. After the game, he asked me, he said, "Do you take karate or something?" because having his hands. And so that was one of the things that really gave me an advantage. If you're controlling their hands or controlling their chest plate, you win.
Yeah. After I was released, and I didn't stay long, Jackie, they definitely saved some money on meals by not having me around. But that's okay. I learned more about hand placement and the critical importance of that, like Bill just mentioned. After about 2.5 weeks of going against him, and what was Kramer's first name? Gosh,
Ben Kramer.
Yeah, good dude, man. I really liked him. I think everybody on the team loved that guy. Art still, of course, but Mike, you mentioned him as being a really good friend still, and Mike's hands were amazing. He would wait for you to put your hands out for him to counter. But I learned more about that. And I have to be honest with you, I never learned that in college the way that you did. So when I go back and I'm a graduate assistant, I work for a year, I'm working with the offensive linemen with their hands going, I'm telling you guys, if you don't learn how to do this, you'll never make it at this level, let alone at the next. So just the importance of that cat and mouse relationship between an offensive and a defensive lineman and how critical their hands are. And the technique obviously worked for you. Your rookie of the year, Bill. I mean, my goodness, you got it at the pro level as early as anybody could, to where I'm not only good at this, but I'm dominating at it. And it was a natural fit for you.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. It was sometime in maybe January, the end of January. I got a letter in the mail from the Associated Press that told me, you know, I was NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. And it caught me off guard. I didn't expect it. The one thing I did is I just everything is new when you're a rookie. Every trip you go on, every city you go in, every stadium you go into, everything you do is a first. I didn't let that overwhelm me. I just stayed the course, and I knew it was going to be a longer season than the college season, and I just made myself mentally prepared. Just every day, just do it every day, do the grind, and I just took one day at a time, 1 week at a time, one game at a time, and one play at a time, and just focused on that. And the outcome was spectacular.
Well, Jackie, just to keep you involved with this, you've got Tim Lewis, Jimbo Covert. We know about Marino. There's Russ Grimm. There's Mark May. There's Hugh Green. We've talked about him. You've mentioned Ricky Jackson a few times. All these guys you need to call and stay in touch with. And then you got to add Bill into it as well. He's just another guy in your Rolodex that you got to make sure that you stay in touch with, and you know how good he's doing. And I imagine there's a certain thrill that you have as a coach to seeing the success that any man has that's come under your tutelage, to where on Sundays he's playing at the highest level.
Well, as you get older, like I said earlier, as a coach, you're not their friend. As a parent, you're not your kid's friend. You're the parent, you're the coach. But years later is when you get your payback. And I'm very honored and flattered that Bill asked me to come and speak at his Hall of Fame at Kansas City on December the 7th.
Well, did you ever expect, Jackie, that he would look like this with some of his teammates? And
well, we did some funny things dressing up at Pitt as well. I always did something on a Thursday, on Friday before we played on Saturday, because I always felt that if you worked during the week and you were prepared, then Friday should be more of a very relaxed, a very easy, and you're still mentally prepared, but more getting relaxed to get ready to play. Yeah. And I would dress up in some other uniform, especially when Coach Major was the head coach. I did a full headdress when we played Florida State, played Notre Dame. I would dress up as a leprechaun. And if my size, dressing up as a leprechaun, you can imagine what that looked like. But, but we had fun. I don't know if there's been a more of a team that was focused, that we had fun at Pittsburgh. And yet when the bell rung, or when the kickoff came, teams didn't want to play us, because you had one focus, and that was to make it a very physical game and, beat the rear end and make them like it when you did.
Yeah. Did Jackie make a good leprechaun, Bill?
I didn't see that. I've only seen pictures of it. I wasn't there when he dressed up as one, but I have seen pictures of it.
Yeah.
He's had a knack for doing a few things over the years, and quite frankly, that poster couldn't fly in today's climate.
No. Is this your version of the Super Bowl Shuffle, the '85 Bears? I think that they were trying to do that with everybody. And let's be fair, some of the posters, they even say in the NBA, you got posterized. Some of the great Michael Jordan or LeBron or Magic and Larry Bird posters. You got to be a part of this one here. You didn't have to bring a whole lot to the shoot, though, right? A loincloth, is that about it? And a pair of socks?
Yeah, that was it. Fun time. Those things are still in high demand, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't unsee it, so I would imagine that's going to be, pretty big. Talk about you're starting to connect with the community. Kansas City, going back to I'm going to say the mid '60s. Made a huge difference. They started drafting players like Curly Culp and Buck Buchanan and Len Dawson, and they were good, and then they got better. They win Super Bowl IV, for crying out loud, and nobody knows much about them with Otis Taylor. They're in the longest game ever played. They were on the wrong end of it, but you know what I'm saying. The history of this organization that you got to be a chance of, and what they're doing now. You're kind of sandwiched in that middle of it. You're the creamy Oreo, fluffy part, but the organization itself. How has that really affected you in terms of, you know what, this area, and it's a huge footprint. If you talk about the amount of states and square footage, Kansas City has a very unique footprint in the NFL. But you got to be a part of that. Talk a little bit about the importance of that and how much it means to you now.
Well, they call it the Chiefs Kingdom here, and Lamar Hunt, when he moved his team, the Dallas Texans, to Kansas City, he made it a focal point just to be a big part of the community. It was in our contract actually when I got here that we live in Kansas City and be a part of the community. That was actually in my first contract. So there's a huge sense of ownership when you talk about the Chiefs and their fan base. The reasons we were talking about, the Alabamas and the LSUs and the Penn States and things of that nature. Lamar Hunt saw that here in Kansas City. There wasn't anything there. They could capture that huge college atmosphere with a fan base. And they have. Our fan base goes from South Dakota all the way down to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That they're all part of the Chiefs Kingdom. So there's a lot of pride that goes along with it. It was fun to help get the franchise back on the winning side of things. I got to meet all the players from the first Super Bowl and got to be friends with them, know them all well. Still friends with Bobby Bell today. We lost a bunch of guys. But, Lamar Hunt was a pioneer in the aspect of he went out to these black colleges and recruited these players to come play for him. And that wasn't the norm back when how the NFL worked. This was the new American Football League. And he went out and got all these players, Willie Lanier, Buck Buchanan, as you talked about. I mean, he was a pioneer in what he did. And, then the merger came and the history behind all that. It's just special to be a part of it, to see how far this has come in such a relatively short period of time, really, when you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
When football started, to be able to where it's at right now from the early stages of the American Football League, it's amazing to see.
Yeah, and you get to be a part of all of that. And again, that history, the early days, the hate for the Raiders, we can talk about that a little bit. But Jackie, before we do, let's talk about, the introduction of these I'm going to call them underappreciated players that are from other parts of the country that aren't on television every weekend, but boy, they can play. They're fast, they're strong, they're smart. They just need an opportunity to play. And when they're given one, look what happens. And I think Hank Stram did a magnificent job of collating a bunch of guys that didn't know each other, but came together with a common bond. And they were as competitive as you could imagine anybody. No one wanted to play. No offensive lineman, I can guarantee you this, in the NFL, want to play against the Chiefs defensive line. And you got to see this right after this is a college age time for you and just out of it. I mean, you got to see this firsthand.
Well, the collection that we had at Pitt, Bill being from the East Coast, but he had teammates from the West Coast, from Texas, from Mississippi, from Florida, from Georgia. So he had teammates that were from all over the U.S. And same thing when he went to Pro Bowl. He had teammates that were from every college, not only the top colleges, but from some of the smaller colleges in the country. It's amazing when you look at the Hall of Fame, when you go back and really realize how many 2-star, 3-stars that are in the Hall of Fame compared to a 5-star.
Yeah. Yeah, it
coming
really
out
is
of high
amazing.
school.
It's amazing. Some guys don't mature at the same rate that others. They're 17, 18 years old. They're skinny as a rail. They just need to be fed and go in a weight room. And at 20, they're amazing, right? You see that all the time. You just got to be able to get it. And you mentioned that with Bill earlier here, Jackie, when you said, hey, my coach, my assistant told me that kid's going to be a stud. He's going to be a 300-pound machine. And you're going, what are you talking about? He's 215 if he's anything right now. He needs to go back inside and go eat some more food. Hey, Mom, let's go, Mrs. Maas, feed this guy.
That's true. But he turned out pretty damn good.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, he got it. Well, I wanted to mention this. I'm going to show you one more picture here, Jackie. Can you hear the squeaky wheel here? This is when Bill, all good things must come to an end, and he leaves Kansas City. His last year in the league, he didn't get a car. He got a bicycle. And I'm teasing here. I got to experience this myself. Near the end of my career, I signed with the Packers. And you got these kids. They're anywhere from 8 to maybe 13 or 14 years old. They bring their bicycles to practice every day, and they ride on the back. They wear your helmet. They put your shoulder pads on, and you get to drive about a half a mile downhill, at least to the Hudson Center. But every day a kid adopts you and says, all right, you're my guy. You're my Packer for the day. You've had some great experiences. Obviously, Mississippi State has some. There's Texas A&M, for crying out loud. The bonfire is an amazing tradition, but this is one of the ones in Green Bay.
Well, I'm surprised that the tires were not a little flatter.
Yeah, it's almost like it was a Tesla, right? Batteries, and he weighs about 4,000 pounds, and the poor kid's bike's tires aren't going to work very well. But, he had a pretty good career in Green Bay, too. And 10 years in the league. Did you expect that out of him? A decade full of great play?
Not when I walked out of his house. The first time, not at all. But, there was like a lot of the guys at Pittsburgh, and he played with some guys that were men. They were not boys. They were men, and they were men in college as well.
Yeah, that's a transition that he went through, and so many others do. And I'm not a boy anymore. Victor Trujillo was the kicker and the running back in high school, and I worked with him, almost every day for 2 years because I was a snapper. And in his senior quote, he said, and this is at the high school level, so he's going from 14 to 18. He goes, I came in a boy, I left a man. Thank you to my high school. You got to experience some of that too, right? They're not quite boys anymore, but you know what I'm saying. The young men becoming full-grown adults where you're responsible for your actions. You're going to go out in the world. You're going to get a great job. You're going to meet a woman. You're going to have a family. You're going to do some great things in your life, right? You become a man. And you were a part of that process, Jackie, of being able to mature somebody at a different level than what others were doing. But, football is not the same as working in in an office. It's just different.
You take Bill Maas as well as some of the other players. But every day in practice, Bill had to go against Mark May, Russ Grimm, Jimbo Colbert, Bill Fralick, and Emil Bors. And so he went against guys in college that were not as good as some of the guys he went against in pro ball.
Yeah.
Every day. And that toughens you up a little bit. And you go, hey, I better get better. We lost him again.
And he's talking about the start of every practice when they have Bull in the ring. And I would call Bill out against one of those guys.
I need to wrap this up, guys.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, Bill, we thank you for being on. Seriously, what a pleasure it's been. We could go a lot longer. For obvious reasons, we won't. But thank you so much for your participation, getting to talk about some of the really cool things that happened in your life and sharing it with our audience. It's a very special time. We're honored to have you.
Bill, thank you.
Guys, thank you. I'm sorry this keeps cutting out on me here.
Okay.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll see you on the 7th.
I love you, Coach.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you, Harp.
You're welcome, Bill. Thank you so much for being on. And Jackie, what an honor it's been. Even though we could go a lot longer, but I just am grateful for you for doing that and getting together with some of your coaches, your friends, and your players to have a relationship with them to where they said, you know what, no problem, I'd love to be on.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay. Well, everybody, we want to say thank you for being a part of today's show. And, recruiting is a super important part of the football process. It also is in the business world. And if you're looking for great candidates that you can hire, just like you're looking for a needle in a haystack, you're always looking for great talent that might be a part of making your organization that much better, to be competitive and to be a front runner in the business world. Well, ZipRecruiter will help you find the amazing candidates that you're looking for and to do so fast. ZipRecruiter has the smartest technology that applies top talent for the roles that you're looking for. And it also lets you get to connect with some of these great people as soon as possible. Ditch the hiring, sales jobs, and other recruiting schemes. What you want to do is you want to let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack, the perfect candidate for your job. 4 out of 5 employers who host on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day, and you can try it for free. Their exclusive offer is go to ZipRecruiter.com/audio, AUDIO, ZipRecruiter.com/audio. It's the smartest way to hire, and we're grateful for them to be a part of today's show. Thank you for Jackie Sherrill, thank you so much again. We want to thank Bill Maas for being a part of today's show. We want to thank you, our audience, for being a part of it as well. We appreciate you being around and watching 100 Yards of Football and taking in an episode like this. We hope you learned something as well. So have a great day, everybody, and we appreciate you being here, and we thank you again, once again, for being a part of the show.